Hello all. So today we will be discussing about the second important life process after nutrition, that is respiration. So the term respiration is derived from Latin word respire, which means to breathe. So from childhood onwards, okay, whenever people ask for what is respiration, we are all familiar with the definition part that respiration is nothing but taking in of oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. So the definition is same, the process of taking in oxygen and giving out of carbon dioxide. Giving out of carbon dioxide is what is called as respiration. Okay. So next, there is a question that comes whether breathing and respiration are one and same or not. So many times we use also breathing in spite of using respiration term. What is the exact difference between breathing and respiration if you have to see? Breathing is the term which is used in the general sense. It refers to the physical process. That is the process what we can feel. Breathing, okay, when you are doing the activity, we can feel it as a physical process. So when you are using the term breathing, it refers to the physical process of breathing. So it is mostly physical. Whereas you use the term respiration when the process is physiological. That is, respiration term is used when the process of respiration is taking place at the cellular level inside the body. So respiration term we use in physiological processes. Okay, respiration term, when it is physiological, you use the term respiration. Physiological in the sense when something is taking place inside your body, it is called as a physiological process. Not only respiration, we have the process of digestion, the process of excretion, whatever that happens inside our body, okay, that particular process would be called the physiological process. So the difference between breathing and respiration, there is a minute difference. Breathing is with reference to the physical process where we can feel the process, whereas respiration actually is a physiological process which will be taking place at cellular level. That is, the cells will be taking in oxygen and giving out carbon dioxide. At that time, actually, the process would be referred to as respiration in a more correct sense. Okay. Then, what is the main purpose of respiration? Did you ever think from the time of birth, we are all breathing, all living organisms also breathe in. What is the main purpose of respiration? Yes, there is some purpose for this process. That is, this process helps in providing energy to our body. Okay, so it provides energy to our body. So in what way? When you eat something, it is all going to the stomach, and we have seen in nutrition that with the help of all the different enzymes, it is getting broken down into the substituent components. That is, carbohydrates, if you see, it will be broken down into glucose, proteins to amino acids, fats to fatty acids and glycerol, etc. So all these components that are formed from the respective nutrients will go to the cells. Okay, and in the cells, okay, they will combine with oxygen that is being taken in during the process of respiration. So nutrients, when they combine with oxygen, the bonds which exist between the atoms, suppose glucose is there, it will have C6H12O6 is the formula. So the bonds which are there in between, those will be broken down and energy will be released. So the nutrients, they combine with oxygen, and the bonds in between the atoms that are present in the nutrients will be broken down and energy will be released. So by the process of respiration, ultimately what is happening is energy is getting released. So that is the very purpose of respiration, that is to provide energy to the organism. Okay, so here carbohydrates, the ultimate product we said would be glucose. It will combine with oxygen during the process of respiration and energy will be given out, and energy is given out. So that energy will be called as ATP. It is called as ATP, that is adenosine triphosphate. So if you remember, okay, it will be stored in what is called as mitochondria of the cell. Whatever is desired, that will be used for the body. It is called the energy currency of the cell, if you remember, ATP. And the extra ATP that is there would be stored inside the mitochondria for future use. Anytime whenever our body demands energy, it will be supplied through the mitochondria of the cell. So nearly 50 to 100 mitochondria would be present per cell, which will be storing the ATP in that. Whatever is required, that will be utilized by the body, and remaining all will be stored within the mitochondria. So like this, the main purpose of respiration is to provide energy. By combining with nutrients, the bonds will be broken off, energy will be released, and that energy will be helping us in performing all the metabolic activities, the voluntary activities, the involuntary activities also. Then there comes a question, is that all organisms take in oxygen and give out carbon dioxide? For sure, the answer is no. Okay, there are some organisms, okay, the answer is no. There are some organisms which are called anaerobes. They are called anaerobes. So these organisms are the one which will survive in the absence of oxygen. Therefore, they are called as anaerobes. Aerobic means in the presence of oxygen. Anaerobic means in the absence of oxygen. So these organisms, they survive in the absence of oxygen, and these are of two types again. The obligate, okay, the obligate anaerobes you have and the facultative anaerobes. Obligate anaerobes are strict anaerobes, that is, they will strictly survive only in the absence of oxygen. Even if little oxygen is present, they cannot survive. So what are the examples? You have Clostridium bacteria. Bacteria called Clostridium. Okay, you might have heard Clostridium. Clostridium tetani. So when you fall down or any injury happens, usually you are advised to take a tetanus injection, okay, injection, that is tetanus toxoid injection you take to avoid tetanus disease. So that is caused by this particular bacterium called Clostridium. Clostridium tetani is the species which will cause tetanus. And Clostridium botulinum is one more species which will cause food poisoning. So Clostridium, actually it's a bacteria and it is an obligate anaerobe. That is, it will survive only in the absence of oxygen. Okay, then we have one more type of anaerobes, that is facultative anaerobes. These are organisms which can survive in the presence or in the absence of oxygen. Okay, they can survive in the presence or in the absence of oxygen, and the examples include E. coli, Escherichia coli, which will usually cause the gastric problems, and we have yeast. Okay, yeast basically is used in the bakery products, and I hope you also know from your 8th class that it is used in production of alcohol also. So I have indicated here plus or minus for facultative organisms, which indicates that they can survive in the presence or absence of oxygen, whereas obligate, okay, they only will survive in the absence of oxygen. So like this, now we have two categories of organisms, aerobes and anaerobes. So now there comes a question whether anaerobes, okay, derive energy or not. Yes, they also derive energy, though oxygen is not needed, but still in the absence of oxygen, they break down the bonds and generate energy. And the amount of energy that is generated in anaerobes would be less compared to aerobes. Okay, compared to aerobes. So aerobes, they require oxygen. Anaerobes, they do not require oxygen. So let us see the differences between aerobes and anaerobes. What are the exact differences? And that is also a very important question, the differences between aerobes and anaerobes. Before proceeding with the differences between aerobes and anaerobes, let us also know the equation for respiration. In the exam, if they ask for equation for respiration, you have to write this particular equation. Okay, C6H12O6, this is nothing but we are writing about glucose in the equation. So glucose, when it combines with oxygen, it will be converted into carbon dioxide and water, and also energy is released. So the amount of energy that is released is about 686 kilocalories, which is equivalent to 38 ATP. So in the presence of oxygen, the amount of energy that is getting released in the terms of ATP will be about 38 ATP. So let us see the differences between aerobes and anaerobes. Aerobes and anaerobes. So aerobic organisms, they survive in the presence of oxygen. They will survive only in the presence of oxygen. Whereas anaerobes, they survive in the absence of oxygen. They will survive in the absence of oxygen. Then here aerobes, they produce more energy. They produce more energy compared to anaerobes. So they produce less energy. By breakdown of bonds, they produce less energy. Then here the equation will be C6H12O6, that is glucose, combines with oxygen, giving rise to 6CO2 and 6H2O and energy. As we have written the equation already there. So the same equation you will be writing here also. Then for anaerobes, okay, C6H12O6, which is glucose, in the absence of oxygen, it will be converted into 2C2H5OH. C2H5OH is a formula for ethyl alcohol. Okay, so ethyl alcohol and carbon dioxide, and energy is produced. The amount of energy that is produced in anaerobic respiration is about just 2 ATP. How much it is? It is very less, just about 2 ATP molecules. So when ethanol is produced, it is called as ethanolic fermentation, and it will be mediated by the organism yeast. It will be mediated by the organism yeast. By the process of this, okay, fermentation only, yeast is able to produce alcohol from the substances which contain glucose in it. Okay, so the method by which yeast is producing alcohol is by fermentation. So anaerobic respiration is also called fermentation, and here glucose in case of, okay, if yeast is used as the organism, it will produce ethyl alcohol and it will be called as ethanolic fermentation. If okay, the fermentation is taking place, okay, with the help of lactic acid bacilli, you will have the product as lactic acid. The formula here is 2C3H6O3 will be the formula, and energy will be released which will be equivalent to 2 ATP molecules. Okay, so as you can see, less amount of energy is produced in anaerobic respiration compared to aerobic respiration, wherein 686 kilocalories of energy is produced, 38 ATP are produced, whereas in anaerobic the amount of energy that is produced will be less. So depending upon the product that is formed, if ethanol is formed, it is called ethanolic fermentation, wherein the organism will be yeast. Okay, suppose in the sugar solution, if you add some yeast, cover it and keep it to one side. After few days, you get the smell of alcohol from that, and that happens because of the organism what we added, that is yeast, which will break down glucose to ethyl alcohol, and that is called ethanolic fermentation. That is how all the alcoholic products would be produced. Then, okay, lactic acid fermentation, formation of lactic acid, that is when your curdling is happening, that time, okay, whatever the glucose content, the carbohydrate content that is present in the milk will be broken down by lactic acid bacteria into lactic acid, and also energy will be released. So when lactic acid bacteria is there, you get the lactic acid and it will be called lactic acid fermentation. Then as the fourth difference, you can write the examples. Humans or all the animals, and plants are the examples for aerobes. For anaerobes, okay, you have E. coli and yeast. So in the coming up videos, let us see some more interesting facts about respiration, some more experiments related to respiration. So hope you are following. Try to put on some comments, okay, whatever doubts you have or anything to be clarified, so that is an encouragement actually for me to do more videos and help you out in a better way. Okay, thank you. Hope you will put your comment.